Come join Libby and Molly, the ladies of Consignment Chats, as we talk about all things consignment. Hi, C Chatters. Welcome to episode 62 of C Chats. We are having a roundtable discussion. Our last one was all about live sales. This week, we are going to bring you a roundtable discussion from our C Chatters about hiring help, hiring listing help. Are you there yet? Have you considered it? Well, we have some good tips and tricks. Everybody that we're going to talk to is kind of in a different space with this. So really interesting. So without further ado, let's hop to it. And here we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. Let's get into it. Let's talk about hiring people to do your listings. How do you get help? All right, so we have Tiffany, Teresa, and Michelle here, and we are all at different levels and have all done this very differently over the past couple years. So this is going to be really, let's add Michelle. All right, so this is going to be very interesting to hear everybody's different perspectives. So I think where we should start is let's go around and kind of say where we are with the process, what our experience is, and then open it up to kind of questions and a discussion. I'll go ahead and start. So I had a brick and mortar. So hi, Michelle. I had in-person employees, and but I also at that same time would hire off-site people to do my listings. And they would, take a group of items, and at that point they were paid per listing, per items they were able to complete a listing. Since being online, it has been an evolution. Right now, I have somebody that takes photos, and that's all they do. And they are paid an hourly rate. And I also have someone that will pick up bins and tubs for me. They will sort the items, they will donate, dispose, do everything like that. And they will enter a description into my software. They'll enter the description. So that's where I am right now in terms of help and how it works for me. I haven't really had luck with virtual assistants and figuring out how to put them into the process effectively. I have done it and tried it, but it's never been terribly effective for me. All right, so that's where I am. Tiffany, how about you?
Should we introduce ourselves before we do this? So I'm Tiffany with Tiffany's Treasures and Trinkets. I'm an online consignment shop. I basically had a friend that was helping me sort of from near the beginning when I had no money at all whatsoever. And so I started her on just a percentage basis. So she gets basically 10% of the whole sale for each sale. So it's really, not a lot, but she loves the work, and she knows that, as we grow, it'll increase and stuff like that. So she's really great. And then recently, I really hate taking pictures. I really wanted someone to take pictures. I've been looking for a while. I remember I did text Libby a couple months ago or a month ago, and I said, you need to do an episode on hiring because I have questions, how to pay and stuff like that. And, so I did talk to Libby about it a little bit, and I ended up, I have a friend who's my biggest consigner, and she was retiring from her full-time job. And she said, I'll do it. And I was like, okay. But I was scared because I didn't know if I could really afford it or how to pay her. And so it's, she's been here for like 3 weeks now, and it's been a struggle, but I can already, even though right away there was an upturn in sales, and then it kind of went down a little bit because it is February.
A struggle to pay her, not a struggle with her work.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted to clarify this because if Vicky's listening, I didn't want her to think that.
Oh, no.
Go ahead. Yeah.
She's great. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
She's doing so much. I mean, I love it. But I was afraid, I
Sure.
couldn't pay her and stuff like that. It was a struggle. So anyway, Libby told me I'd probably have a struggle for a couple months. And now I'm starting to see the sales pick up. We're listing a lot more every day. I mean, I love it. It's great, incredible. And I'm just hoping it's all going to pay off for all three of us in the long run. So that's where I am right now.
Oh, that's cool. So two different models. And so one is percentage based and the other is hourly.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Michelle, where are you with this? Well, Michelle, not Michelle. Sorry.
I'm going. Well, I'm Michelle with Shop Daisy Avenue, and I've sort of come back to. I started off on eBay, in the '90s, doing everything myself. Um, and of course, the process was completely different. Like, I think I used to actually list the item and then put it in its priority box and write the item number on the outside of the box and seal it up and everything. Um, it's so different now. Now I have like storage bins and,
Yeah.
but I'm doing the Teresa method. But in between all of that, I had a consignment, I had an eBay drop off store, which Teresa might remember in Long Beach. It was on Spring and Palo Verde, called I Sold It on eBay. And it was a lot of work. I spent a lot of time doing marketing. And I had, at one point, I had at least 4 people in the shop at any given time, including a full-time manager. And I got very spoiled. But I also learned I'm a delegator through all that experience because I didn't have to deal with the business policies. I didn't have to deal with the bad feedback. I let my manager handle all of that stuff. Disputes, you name it. And so coming back full circle to doing it just myself, I'm finding I don't mind doing the listing writing. I mean, that's pretty simple. Bullet points are easy peasy. Optimizing, not a problem. Photographing, not really a problem. I have the biggest issue with measurements because I do so much vintage clothing that I want to be really, really clear on my listings that, how something is going to fit someone. And so I have a friend that's doing, I'll give her 15 or 20 items at a time and I pay her $1.50 and she'll enter it into ListPerfectly and with the measurements. And I have templates for every item. So if it's a t-shirt, she knows it's just 2 measurements. If it's a dress, then she has like a whole set of measurements in the template already built out for her.
Just quick aside now, do you use Sizely in ListPerfectly?
I don't. I use
Sizely putting it in the description.
When it first got introduced to ListPerfectly, and I found that I was entering and entering and entering. You know what I mean? And then I also kept having people on Etsy not be able to see. It looks like a white picture on Etsy, the Sizely template. So people would say, "Are there measurements on this item?" Because they would scroll through the pictures, the thumbnails, and the Sizely picture would look white. So, which is, so I just built it into my template, which is, and I didn't want to pay for another service. So I was literally using tops for like everything, which I still do. I mean, my main template in ListPerfectly is tops dress because it's all the same, right? It's just the overall length changes and if there's a waist hem.
Okay, so you're hiring somebody to do your measurements and you're paying them per piece.
Right.
And so do you have any like struggles with that or things?
Yeah, I'd love to be able to have her do at least some more of the description stuff. She has a tendency to put things like shirt sleeves instead of short sleeves because I live in rural Pennsylvania. And I don't know that we always have the same eye, like I'm dealing in vintage clothing. She's more of a mall shopper. So
like if I was to take your items, like I consider myself like a fairly good description writer and understand keywords. But if I were to take your items, I couldn't do the descriptions you wanted. So I'm kind of curious to hear from everybody because I don't know how you could find somebody short of providing like insane training.
Exactly. I mean, I look at some other people's listings and I don't have any like very successful resellers that have almost nothing in their listings, very, very basic measurements. And I just get afraid of the returns and the complaints and the.
Yeah. All right. So that's kind of where you are. You're looking to kind of expand the range of what an assistant or a helper would do and be able to describe things a little more accurately.
Right.
All right. And Nichelle, where are you with hiring help? Do you have help? Do you have questions? Where are we?
Yeah. So when I was working out of my house, my business house, I had help. I'm sorry, my dog apparently thinks that that's something to bark at.
This is real life.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm so sorry. So I had somebody who was coming to my house, and she was helping. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna go take care of it.
Go ahead, and we'll circle back to you. Okay, so Teresa, I was saving you for last because I think you have a lot of experience in this field and have a lot of insight. So I want you to be able to hear kind of where we all are, and tell us what you do. Tell us what kind of feedback, suggestions you think might be helpful to how we're running our businesses.
I will tell you that it was not always easy, and it is a trial and error process. I've been selling on eBay. I am an eBay girl. I will always be an eBay girl. I have branched out to multiple platforms. I'm such an eBay girl. My license plate is eBay girl.
I've seen that. I love it. All right, those of you that aren't following Numbers Geek, you got to go ahead and do that because, it's fantastic. Love your feed.
Oh, thanks. And I'm not a huge Instagrammer, but I do try to, pop in there every now and then. But so I've been selling on eBay for over 25 years, and doing it as a side hustle. Worked in higher ed for over 30 years until about 6, maybe 7 years ago. I actually, in 2012, I got laid off from my dream job, and I said, that's all right. I'm just going to be able to do eBay full time. And so then I had to start and stop, and because it's like it became February, and I'm like, there's no sales, and I still have a mortgage to pay, and so I tell that story because I don't want people to be afraid that if they say, okay, I'm leaving corporate world and they have to go back. I didn't feel like a failure. I just knew better the second time around what I needed to do. Anyway, so when I started doing this, and it was like all day long, and then you just realize I need help, but I was paralyzed because I didn't know how to get the help. And I think that that's a very common thing. We're so used to doing it, and it's like, I don't want them to mess up my listings. Nobody can mess up your listings because it's going to sell better if it's online than if it's in a box in your office. And so I tell people you have to get rid of that fear. It's okay if they don't do your listings the same way you do or as good as you think it should be, because look at how many crappy listings are on eBay and they still sell.
Yeah.
So, let go of that fear. But I did a couple of trial errors with some services, and I did a couple of trial errors with some VAs that were outside of the US, and I have VAs that are inside the US now, and I love them, and they're perfect. And so that's where I am. So before I go in about what we're doing, we'll go back to Nichelle. And then
and just to clarify, VA, for those of you that don't know, we get that question, is a virtual assistant. A lot of people use, I'm not sure, maybe we can link up a service you use if you have one you like. A lot of people use Hammock or Free Up or any number of those. So
all right, I'll come back to what I was saying. Thanks so much for working with me. So when I had my business in my house, I had a girlfriend come over, and she was awesome about taking pictures, and I paid her to do pictures and measurements and steam clothing, because I primarily do like clothing, shoes, handbags, that kind of stuff. And it was great. It was wonderful, and I never had a death pile, and it was fantastic.
What? You never had a death pile? Oh my God.
I didn't. It was wonderful. It was also during the pandemic when, she was laid off from work. We had a lot of time to work. So, fast forward to today, we had to make the choice that I needed to move my business out of the house. Like, we just couldn't live with it. We have a pretty small house. So, I ended up finding a workspace. It's wonderful. I love it. But I am so nervous to take on another expense beyond just like rent. I know that moving out of the house was good. It was the right choice for me, but I'm still really small. I'm literally a one-person show, so I'm doing everything right now, except for sharing on Poshmark. I have a virtual person for that.
Okay.
So I would love to hire somebody, but I'm very nervous to make the jump. And I know she would come back because she's fantastic at it. But it's really coming down to the expense part right now of like, can I have faith enough to just do it? So
I love Tiffany's idea of doing, she did a percentage when she first started to ramp up. When I went back to hiring helpers, employees, I like I told Tiffany, I knew it was going to be like a rough couple months, like with the income, because I'm not going to see the results of that. And it was a rough couple months.
I'm so glad to hear you just openly say that, because I am just like, I know it'll be good, but it's so hard to just grit your teeth and bear it until it gets good.
And make sure you have the resources to sustain yourself over that until it catches up. Don't put yourself in a precarious situation. But
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I tell a quick story about how I got over that?
Yeah.
So my affectionately call my helpers, because I hire teams. I love my teen helpers, my minions. And so I have a minion that I hired on her 12th birthday. And she has worked for me on and off. She just left in November to go serve a mission in Peru and, save the world, like whatever. She's 19 and but she went away to college and I think it was in 2020 when she came home in April. And then I think it was the summer before that, where she really wanted to work. She likes doing what she did. She likes listing. She likes taking photographs and all this sort of stuff. And so she told me, you know what it was? It was the summer between high school and college. And she wanted to make $1,000 to go away to school. And so I said, okay. And I was like, can I do this? And, it's like, can I do it? Yes. Do it. Is it worth it? Blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this for this kid. I'm just going to put $1,000 in. And if it works out, great. If not, then, I've contributed to her college. I've known this child since she was, I know her dad really well. Her dad and my brother were best friends as teens. So, anyway, I decided to do that, and she made a little over $1,000, and she went off to school in August. So I decided to, and at that time she was taking the pictures and doing the listings. And so I decided to track the sales of the items that she listed. And in 6 weeks, I had made up the $1,000 that I paid her and only sold 7% of the items she listed. And so that right there, I never looked back.
Yeah.
Because there's no way, and I forget how many items she listed. I think she listed, I don't remember. I paid her at the time 50 cents an item to photograph, 6 to 12 pictures. And then when she did games and stuff that took a little longer, I would either bump her up to $1 a listing, or I'd just bump her up, $50 for the 2 weeks or something like that. And then I pay $1.50 a listing to list. I have since bumped my photographs up to 75 cents, just because I think it's more fair. I used to keep it at $2 a listing, $1 for photograph, $1 for listing, and I realized that it's a much longer process to list than it is to photograph. So I've adapted over the time, and I think so now it costs me $2.25 a listing. Okay. And if you can't, and I tell people, if you don't feel you can justify that, you need to increase your prices. And I really try to push on people that lower prices don't sell your items. And I push a thing called perceived value. And so, and this is the example I always give. If you have a yellow plastic necklace, and I have a yellow plastic necklace, and I bought it for $15 20 years ago, and I've worn it, it's like, it's out of style, I don't like it. And I list it for $20. And because, it's like, I still like it. Somebody's going to need this yellow, whatever reason, I like to list my stuff high. Somebody else says, oh, this is 20 years old. It's not popular. It's blah, blah, blah. I'm going to list it for $3. There are shoppers out there that will look at that and say, that $3 item must be junk. I don't want to waste my money. Let me buy the nicer item. They're the same item. It's perceived value.
Absolutely.
So
Isn't that crazy? Like I remember doing this, like we would take a low priced item, we would bump up like that wasn't selling and we bump up the price and all of a sudden it would sell. And I'd be like, oh,
absolutely.
that's so like counterintuitive, but it really works.
Mhm.
If
Crazy.
you are lacking sales, I tell people, like sometimes I'll look at somebody's store and I'm like, your prices are way too low. You cannot sell a t-shirt for $7.99 with free shipping. You just can't do it because if you did and I realized a lot of people, I am a numbers geek. My Instagram is numbers geek. I did financial and budgeting for 30 years in higher ed. Like I know how to do this stuff, but not everybody does. They're doing it because they like to. So I just try to go, okay, this is how you figure this out the quick and easy way. You know, if it doesn't matter that you bought it for 50 cents and you sold it for $8, it doesn't matter. You can buy it for 50 cents and sell it for $25.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really hard to get the people that are in that mindset out of that mindset.
Mhm.
But so, Nichelle, what I would tell you is decide what you're going to do. Invest, say, okay, I'm going to invest $500, $1,000, and that's an investment in your company.
Right.
And I'm going to pay her and I'm going to see how long it takes you to do that. And then just track the items. Have her put something in the custom SKU or something that so that when it sells, you can put it on your spreadsheet and keep track of it. And even after Nicole went to school, I would tell her, oh my gosh, I've made up 50% of what it cost you in this. And so until I got to 100%, and then because I wanted to teach her as well
Sure.
how easy in quotes it is, because I wanted her to see that it was worth the value. And she's like, nobody's going to buy this for $35. I'm like, you watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
I love the idea of setting that money aside up front, whether, $500, $1,000, whatever it is, to set that aside. That never even occurred to me to do something like that.
Yeah.
and I did it because she
brilliant.
told me she wanted $1,000 because her parents were paying for most of the college stuff, but she had to have her own play money. And so she just figured $1,000, like that's what I guess a 17-year-old thinks of when they go to college. And then I kept doing that. And then when she came back in April, it was too hard to figure out, this is what she listed last summer, this is what she listed now. And then I just quit tracking it because it didn't matter.
Right. Right. You knew it worked. You knew it worked at that point.
Yep.
I
So
love
Libby,
that advice. Yeah, thank you. I've been like needing the courage to just do it again because I have a death pile now and I don't like that.
I have a room. I have a whole room. So yeah.
Tiffany, you had a question?
No, I was going to say, Libby, on just fun fact, on the Profit First Nation podcast, they talk about how before you hire a new person, you should accumulate a year's worth of the cost of the year's salary for that person before you hire that person.
Yeah, I did hear that. And I thought, in our situation, I don't think that's really applicable.
No, I know, but
Like,
I'm just saying too, like, it's good for something smaller. It's good to like have a little buffer before you do it. Cause I didn't have the buffer, but I just knew I had to dive in and just do it. So.
Yeah. So Tiffany and I are big into Profit First and that whole cash management system. We did a whole episode on it, but we employ that in our businesses, and it's been absolutely amazing and a game changer. So you'll hear us talk about that a lot.
I told Nichelle to read the book because it would help her make that decision easier. Yeah.
It's very interesting, but I mean, it totally changed my life.
Me too.
Not being dramatic either.
No.
All right, so Teresa, so do you use all right, so let's talk a little bit about Michelle and her situation with like the keywords, description. Do you have any advice about maybe where she could or should go, or what might work?
Oh, because yes, you would definitely have a niche. It's hard to find a virtual assistant that you can work with. So, and everybody thinks of a virtual assistant from a third world country, and I don't. All mine are in the US. So how did I find them? I posted something in one of my Facebook groups. I posted something on my wall. Now, my Facebook friends are mostly resellers. I have 2 accounts. My personal account, frankly, I hardly ever go to that anymore. But so that my active Facebook account is all reseller friends.
Mhm.
And so if I post something on there, it's going to get a wide audience. But I'll post something. I posted something in my boss Facebook group that said probably something like, "Hey, I'm looking for a virtual assistant. Anybody?" Because I struggle like everybody else. What's worked for you? What services? And the language barrier for the ones that you hire on, Fiverr or offer, not offer up, Fiverr or any of those types of services was just too difficult for me. I would do a
Mhm.
statement of process like you do this and you do this, and it just was too difficult. And so I found somebody, and actually there's quite a few people out there like this. They love the reselling business, but they needed to downsize their inventory. Like her family grew, she lost her eBay room. She still loved the reselling community, but she didn't have the place for the inventory. So she said, I don't remember if she said something on her wall or she commented on my wall, but I just reached out to her and I said, "Hey, let's see if this works." She is fabulous. And so
So
what she does is she takes the listings and she puts them in, saves them in drafts. I have one lister that lists directly in ListPerfectly and one lister that lists directly in eBay. And she lists them in drafts and then I review them. And then she goes, and sometimes she'll go back. She's like, "Oh yeah, I saw how you changed that, whatever." And then she's just on her own looking at my listings and editing some of them. But what I found is if she starts it and has all the information in there, it takes me no time to edit and launch it, which is far less time than it would if I had to go pick it up and measure it and do this. Now, for you, the part, so my lister lives in Indiana and my photographer was here. And so the photographer had to take all the pictures and then they get uploaded into a Google Drive. And so we have what we call information pictures. And the information picture might have the box number, if the item, the price I paid for it, it's UPC. I do a lot of new stuff and that kind of stuff. For you, it would be I have a picture frame that has a picture of a garment, and she just takes a white marker pen and writes the measurements on that and takes that picture on top of the item, so that if the picture gets separated from the item, you don't just have a photograph of measurements. Like I tell her, like, take a picture of the tag so you can see that it's a Old Navy red shirt, and then the diagram so that they know that those measurements are going with that garment. So with you, that's
Oh, I love
where.
that.
So for you with your measurements being so important, I would probably pay the photographer $1 an item. Or if you're the photographer, you just make sure you take those measurements and write them down.
So you think it's easy.
Right.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about, all right. So this is something I'm struggling with. So I couldn't figure out, like, I need somebody, I can't figure out a space where I could use somebody effectively virtually. So for instance, my photographer is here doing the photographs, right? They have to have their hands on the item. My other person that does the sorting and the data entry and the, descriptions, she needs to physically have those items in front of her. And so she comes and she picks them up. So I what does that look, how could I arrange things so that I could use somebody to process them virtually? It sounds like I would have, like, obviously the photography needs to be here and maybe like the information pictures.
Yeah,
And
and
then you would
so
hire somebody virtually to complete the listing.
yeah, so
Okay.
my process is this. So I had an Airbnb. I just sold it in November to cash out in this crazy market, and I'm so glad I did.
Hmm.
Except that I hate my new storage space for my inventory, but that's another story. Um, so my process was, and I blocked out the entire month of August at my Airbnb because my photo setup was at the Airbnb, and I
Okay.
had blocked off the master suite for my office. But if there were guests there, she couldn't photograph over there. And so I
Mm.
blocked off the entire month of August. So that's a month of Airbnb income that I lost, but it was worth it. And I knew it because I knew that she was going to be gone and I just needed her to photograph all these items. And so what happened was we had a dedicated space and the inventory was there. So the first picture is usually a picture of the tag or, and it's not just one picture. Sometimes it's 5 pictures, whatever. But she always took a picture of the item on the scale and then a picture of the item in front of the box number. So for me, there's a box of unlisted item, and then she would have 6 or 8 boxes with box numbers on them. And in my system, my inventory system, everything goes in an inventory box. If it's unlisted, the box is not labeled, and then it gets photographed and moved to a labeled box. And so in my inventory system, there's a wall of boxes with no numbers. That's unlisted inventory. And so she would take that, photograph the item, and then, all this different stuff, close up of the tag, close up of this, whatever. Sometimes she would measure the item or just put the metal yardstick on the item. Again, not ideal, not my favorite picture, but does it get the job done? Yes. Has anybody ever asked me for anything else? No. So for a simple t-shirt or a simple skirt, that's fine. But for your garments, Michelle, you want more detail. So what you would do is, measure it and write it down or whatever, and then take a picture of that picture. Then when she would take it and put that on the scale, that gives my lister the weight, and then a picture of the item in front of the box. That gives my lister the item location. The photograph puts the item in the box, and the box goes in the listed inventory, even though it's not listed yet. But it moves the process along. And once the photographer takes that picture, it now has a home in an inventory box.
Right. My process is maybe completely backwards then, because what I'm doing is as I bring in items, I sit down and I enter it in as I try to keep them in drafts for this stage. But a basic title, a few blips and blobs in ListPerfectly, and I put in my cost of goods and a bin number, and I put it in that bin, and then I take the bin to my person that measures for me, and then she goes into drafts and adds to it.
That works. I think that's a good process. Who does the photography?
Me. And then it comes back and I photograph it.
I think that's a good process because you're doing it directly in ListPerfectly.
Right.
And so my VA that does list directly in ListPerfectly, she does all that sort of stuff. She'll download the pictures, upload them to ListPerfectly. And I love it because ListPerfectly will give you 30 pictures. She arranges them so that the first picture isn't the picture of the price that I paid for it. And that's at the end and all that other sort of stuff. And then when she uploads it to eBay, then she has to make sure that none of that information pictures are in the eBay 12 pictures. And then once that happens, it's all good. And then I do have a third VA that cross posts for me. That's all she does.
I was going to say that's how I have considered hiring someone virtual is I'll put everything into ListPerfectly, but if they can take the time to put it in all 4 platforms that I sell on, like that would take hours, give me back hours of my life.
And I think that's how how Laurie works for you, one of your helpers, right, Tiffany?
Yeah, I was going to quickly tell you my process really quick. So now my photographer takes the pictures. I haven't taught her how to do anything else with the pictures except edit them. And then, so right now, so far, I take the pictures off my phone and I put them up in ListPerfectly as a draft. I just put the pictures only, a brief title and the SKU number. And then my assistant, who's the 10% girl, she'll go in there and she'll research it, write the description, finish the listing off in ListPerfectly, send it to eBay and leave it as a draft in eBay. And then I go into eBay, approve it, check it, and list it. And then this may be too many steps, but then I send it back to ListPerfectly from eBay so the eBay number goes over there. And then I'll delete the draft in ListPerfectly.
Okay.
So she gets enough pictures that she can write everything up. And then again, like sometimes she might get extra pictures with measurements or other internal stuff that we take out of the listing, but she'll see that initially.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. So, all right, here's what I'm thinking. This is our second roundtable. And what I'm thinking is in 6 months, we're going to do the same roundtable and talk about some of the changes we've implemented. and some of the suggestions, see how it's going, what our next steps are going to be, and what's working, what's not. I think that's going to be really awesome. And in the meantime, we started I think it's called See It with C Chats. It's an episode where we look at different people's business process. So this hiring helpers is something I'm going to include in the flow when we talk about business process. So over the next couple months, as we do a couple of these, I will include that in the See It with C Chat, so we can see how different businesses are handling this process, and it'll be spelled out in more detail. So I'm really excited. Thank you guys for taking the time to do this today. I think it's going to help a lot of people. There is a lot of nebulous thoughts floating out there about hiring people. It can be very scary, but as we see here with some tips and tricks, it's really not that bad.
Thank you, Teresa. I mean, my brain is kind of cogging now, and I like good. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me just add one quick thing, because I get this question a lot about how do you pay, and we didn't talk about the cross poster. My cross poster, I pay her 25 cents a listing per platform if you have the ListPerfectly Pro plan. And why is that? Because the ListPerfectly Pro plan has a lot of details that the VA does not have to fill in on every platform. And so if you don't have the Pro plan, then it's going to be more expensive per listing because it's more manual work. And I just put that out there. And my VA, actually, she just told me she's full up. She can't take any more clients right now. So I'm actually in the process of training another VA that I will be able to use to put out in the ListPerfectly community as well. So.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Great. Yeah. Thank you.
This was awesome. Awesome.
Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Wow. All right. That is a lot to take in. Yes. We are all in very different spots with regard to hiring people, whether they are going to be virtual or in real life. There are so many different options to choose from and so many different strategies. So I learned something very interesting that I hadn't even considered doing before, which is something Teresa Cox mentioned, setting aside the money in advance for the person you're going to hire. So maybe build up a little reserve and have that set aside so you don't have to worry as you're going through it. Brilliant. Love it. So next person I bring on board, I am absolutely going to use that method. I thought that was wonderful. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. Drop your comments. Let us know how everything is going with you. Maybe you have some suggestions we haven't covered. Really want to do this again, and we'll be checking in about 6 months and see where everybody is with regard to hiring helpers, maybe some VAs, and we will keep you updated. Over in our C Chats community on Facebook, there has been a lot going on. It is so fun to be able to follow so many businesses, so many reselling and consignment businesses, and seeing the success of everybody. So congratulations and thank you for sharing those successes, for asking those questions. Because chances are, if you have a question on reselling and consignment and you pop it in the group, you're going to get a couple different answers and a couple different perspectives. So I just always appreciate that. You can go to consignmentchats.com for all the ways to find us. There are some interesting things on our website. So we have a free listing calculator. So if you know you need to make $100,000 a year, what does your daily listing look like? Like, what does your day actually look like? So you can go ahead and use that. We also have a sample consignor agreement. So if you don't have one of those in your reselling toolbox, go back, listen to those episodes, spend a couple minutes doing a consignor agreement. You can grab that sample one for free on our consignmentchats.com website. So if you've enjoyed this video, hit like, hit subscribe, and we hope to see you in the community. Have a good one. Cheers. Thanks for joining Libby and Molly, the ladies of Consignment Chats. To find out more and keep chatting, find Consignment Chats on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and podcast. As always, you can find all of this information at consignmentchats.com. Thanks for joining us.